At last, we get to grips with the gorgeous Phantom GTR. And before we climb in and take a drive, you have to take a step back and just soak in that beautiful shape. Anybody that this car has been near does exactly that. First up then, nobody's going to accuse it of being subtle. It isn't. It's a pretty wild looking machine, but take a closer look and you can certainly say that it's restrained. The pen that actually formed this masterful shape did exercise a little restraint. There's no big fins and spoilers sticking out to spoil these absolutely beautiful, elegant lines. And we get to the rear of the car, and under here is where we find nestling the Honda designed V6 2.7 litre engine taken out of the old Rover 800s. So it's a pretty neat installation for all the oily bits at the back, and then we get to the front, and it's here at the kind of user-friendly bit that many a specialist car starts to fall down. Well, it bodes well, because immediately we've got a beautiful setup just for opening the door, and it works beautifully too. Then we climb inside, take a look and see what we get. And immediately we can see that they've taken the very sensible step of keeping things as simple and uncomplicated as possible in here. And that's enabled the designers to achieve a very, very high standard of finish. You could be climbing into pretty much any supercar here. If we take a look around, the bits and pieces that have been used and those that have been sourced from other cars have been extremely well integrated. There's nothing leaping out at you and shrieking, "I was taken from a very ordinary car." Everything fits very neatly and flushly. We have a very nicely integrated dash here, the dials taken from the Rover, but again, there's nothing really to tell you that. You'll notice as well that this is an automatic version. Now that came as something of a surprise to the manufacturers, but quite a few of the customers asking to have these cars built requested an automatic. But that perhaps has quite a lot to say about the possible future uses for the Phantom, as very much a long-legged supercruiser, which fits in very nicely with its rather suave, elegant and really quite subtle design and image. Norman Morris and the rest of the small Phantom team have spent several years of painstaking development time on the GTR. They've resisted the temptation to capitalise on popular public reaction and rush the car into production prematurely in order to make sure they can take development just as far as possible. And the results? They speak for themselves. We're in the workshop of Norman Morris. The man behind this man has driven it on for nearly 8 years. Norman, 8 years ago, wow, you sat down and got involved in this. How?
Yes, well, a colleague of mine had already started the project, and I got involved with him over just saying that I'll do the doors for you. From that moment on, I've done all of the body work, which is difficult for one person to do anyway. So we've been involved in the chassis, the bodywork, heating, ventilating, wipers, everything you can think of in the car from the chassis upwards. And all the time being very meticulous. You worked prior to this as a professional in the motor industry anyway, and you've brought the same kinds of standards to this, haven't you? Oh yes, absolutely. We've been meticulous in everything we've done, and it shows in the car at the moment. The bugbear of many small manufacturers, which I know is how you think of yourselves here and where you're going with this, is that because there isn't the budget for the development work, a lot of the time you have to practice on your customers. You don't want to do that. We're not going to do that, there's no doubt about that. We are going to have this car as perfect as it's likely to be before the customer gets it. Just for you personally, the car is beautiful. You can't deny it. We were taking it around the golf course earlier on, parking it there, and you had to just pull people off the things. How does it make you feel when people react so positively to it? Well, unbelievable really, never having had a poser's car before. This is it's kind of unbelievable that so many people should gather around it wherever you stop. How important is it to you when you sit back and look at the thing? I mean, are you still interested in looking at it? Did you get bored as the novelty worn off after, what, 8 years of staring at it day in, day out? Never, no. It's truly a magnificent vehicle, and I believe it's one of the most magnificent vehicles ever designed visually. Where's it going to go from here? We are going into production. We're starting production now, and we shall be selling the car as a fully finished vehicle, and if anybody's keen enough, we'll sell them the component parts if they want to build it themselves. Ultimate goal with it? Eventually we shall crash test the car so that we go into full production as a production vehicle. As I talk to you, you may pick up a bit of a buzz. That's caused by the engine in this that is actually a show car, so we're certainly not yet at the production stage.
Nevertheless, first impression is it feels very, very solid. There's none of the kind of slackness that you would expect to feel in a car. It feels absolutely bolted together. The 2.7 litre V6 is a pretty lusty unit out the back, and it may not be the loudest, most raucous noise, but it is quite a pleasant sound behind your head. There's enough thrust provided. Perhaps not the time to thrash this car too heavily. It isn't a production version. Nevertheless, it does feel like there's going to be more than enough performance, and I don't doubt that if you really want to work on it, there are things you can do to add that little more oomph. The ride is really very good. There's none of the bone-shaking, jarring that, again, its external appearance might lead you to suspect. It doesn't feel like a taut race car in terms of jarring ride. It soaks it up quite nicely, which lends it very much towards being used as a long-distance cruiser. I could see this car being ideal for jaunting off across Europe. We've heard the phrase supercar, invented probably in the 70s for the Lamborghinis and Ferraris of the time. Well, we'd like to coin another phrase, the super kit, and it starts here with the Phantom. Because there's no more excuses are needed. This car can stand up alongside some of the most exotic machinery available anywhere from anyone and hold its own very well indeed, thank you.